look?
Very good. I must say I'm amazed.
To me, Audrey's look is interesting in that she is not a classic beauty. And yet if you look at her, she's extraordinary.
I had always idolized Audrey. She made things that weren't sexy just by maximizing her ballerina style.
Audrey became very aware of what her type of body needed. She was, believe it or not, extremely modest, and she didn't think that she was shaped very well.
I think Audrey created a stir and such an impact on society because, frankly, we'd never seen anyone who looked like her. She was a gamine, she was a little bit boyish, but she was feminine. And prior to that, in terms of what was acceptable in terms of Hollywood starlets, was this very blousy, obvious Jane Mansfield, Marilyn Monroe, big skirts, big hair, big chests.
Well, you know, back then, she was described as scrawny and boyish and sort of ill-proportioned, but now it's sort of become like the ideal.
She was gorgeous, but not in an obvious way. I can say this because I cared about her. She had the biggest feet of any girl I've ever seen. She was more or less flat-chested, but everything about her just made her beyond sexy.
Edith had for Roman Holiday, put her in the cute little blouse and the flared skirt. Well, she threw on the little scarf and the belt, so she was really good at accessorizing.
Audrey had a great eye, and she knew what was going on in Paris in the French couturier, and she discovered a young designer who was not quite that well known yet, Hubert de Givenchy.
When he first met her, he thought he was meeting Audrey Hepburn. And so when she walked in, she was picking a couple dresses for her role in Sabrina, and he was like, "I don't have time to meet with you, mademoiselle."
And she begged him, she said, "Just let me go look and see what was in the racks from the last season." And she picked out 3 pieces. And those 3 pieces she wore in Sabrina, and they became iconographic. And from then on, she and Givenchy worked together for the rest of her life.
He had, prior to having met her, really been designing for her silhouette, the gazelle-like creatures that the ideal model is. So the things that he showed her without having designed them for her when she first went to him were absolutely perfect for her.
My friends, you saw and hear a waif, a gamma, a lowly caterpillar. We open the cocoon, but it is not a butterfly that emerges. It's not. It is a bird of paradise. Lights!
I think that what those clothes signified for her were more than just a fashion. They were sort of an armor of love, if you can call it that, something that enabled her to be appropriately dressed, which she believed in.
I think it's very unusual to be able to find a creator and a muse that have the same vision. And those two did, which is really unusual.
Oh, how could I be a model? I have no illusions about my looks. I think my face is funny.
I always like to say she was the perfect package of imperfections. She viewed herself as too thin, a bump on her nose, feet too big for her size, whatever. Of course, she had none of those things, but that's what she saw. And I think that is really the definition of beauty, is not knowing that you are so special. That's what makes you accessible.
I think that's one thing that appeals to women, that they look at her and she's not the cookie-cutter blonde, but they know that she's still beautiful. And it's that unique quality that takes her to the top of the list every year, even today.
As a designer, you know, you can't help but design things that you want to wear, you know, as a woman designer. I guess I sort of selfishly design things for myself, and I sort of feel like I, you know, have her body a little bit and, you know, have never really had the curves that I wanted, you know, so I think she has been a great inspiration in that way, to just sort of maximize what you have and be comfortable and confident with that.
She believed always in underdressing rather than overdressing. She always used to say to us, Better be the only one in a blazer at a black tie event than the only one in a black tie, you know, at a casual event.
And she always bought her shoes a half a size too big because she thought that they'd last longer and they look better if you're not cramming your foot into them. And that's just not something that you think of a diva. That's very practical. It's very real. And sticking to that philosophy is what makes your look work.
The way she looked was so much who she was that there was no separation between the woman and her clothes.
So designers today, even now, if they see something they like, a really clean look, a modern look, a look that works, they'll say, oh, that's so Audrey. So it's almost an adjective, a shorthand to that kind of clean American, yet sophisticated style that always looks fabulous and always works.
I'm nothing. A creature of the streets with a police record as long as your arm. He had me paroled just for this, to be the luscious and irresistible bait squirming on the end of the hook he has prepared.
The clothes that made her feel most comfortable were polo shirts and jeans. In fact, that's what she wore, I would say, 90% of the time. That's what she wore at home, that's what she wore on our UNICEF missions.
No matter when you see Audrey Hepburn, whether it's, you know, with the Gigi years or at the end when she was with UNICEF, she looks the same. You know, maybe it's like a cute little polo shirt, capris, cowl neck, but it's the same basic shapes and the same basic colors, black, tan. She didn't really go for a lot of prints. And so she's just this true icon to simplicity and to knowing what works with your body and sticking with it.
It was a way to say, in a way, don't look at me. How interesting that everybody did.
I believe that people, especially women, were intrigued by her style, her elegance, because they sensed it to be a manifestation of her total essence.
She was so genuine in every part of her life, and her clothing and her style, she just genuinely loved clothes. And so it was sort of a natural thing to become a style icon.
I mean, Audrey is, I would say, out of the 20th century, she really is the style icon, and everyone else just follows in her wake.
You see a little bit of Audrey in a lot of people, but you don't really see anybody who's being their own Audrey. And to really be a new Audrey, you have to be an individual. So maybe she's cast too big of a shadow.
Don't you just love it?
Love what?
Tiffany's.